The church doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's also a part of the enmeshed in this fallen culture.
Yeah,
There's a playbook for all this. I don't know if you've heard of the book After the Ball.
of
It came,
course.
yeah. So Hunter Madsen and Marshall
Yeah,
Kirk. One is a Madison
yeah.
Avenue guy,
Like I
died of
said,
AIDS. Yeah. So
all you have to do is, like I said, I have this gift of looking to what they say they're going to do and believe them,
mm,
right? And they're not done. Everyone thinks, oh well, it's not going to get no. It will continue to descend into the depths of you know
mhm.
depravity.
1965 to me was a really liminal tectonic shift year in American culture. It was the end of Vatican II. It was the last time that a musical, rated G musical, won the best feature film Oscar, Sound of Music. And it was the year that Griswold versus Connecticut was decided. For the first time in US history, you could sell and advertise and market contraceptives. Now, this is a Protestant America that passed these Comstock laws. How do you see the passage of Griswold and the invented right to privacy as a fulcrum or a foundation for Roe v. Wade and everything else that's happened since?
No, I think you're absolutely correct, and in fact, I've talked about it a lot, and during my political career, to my detriment. There's no question, and I've said this publicly, that there's no right to privacy in the sense of what, with respect to your sexual behavior, in the sense that that the government can license certain activity. I always say that you know, can people do within their bedroom what consent laws? Sure. I mean, I don't want the government going in there and policing sexual activity, but at the same time, there's a difference between that and what the law says is right or wrong, right? And so, I don't want a law against sodomy. Because it's an unenforceable law, and I don't want to enforce it, and I don't think that we should enforce it. But on the case of in the case of Griswold, the reality is that they created a right to privacy, and that right to privacy didn't end, and would never have ended with just this. Am I for contraception? No, I am not. I'm a Catholic. We don't support that. Am I for a law that bans contraception? No, I am not, because we are a pluralistic society, and the vast majority of the American public supports the contraception. And we're a republic, and we those the laws reflect the will of the people, and that doesn't mean I'll support it, and I won't. But that means that a society should reflect that, good or bad. Um, the problem with Griswold is it wasn't a decision by the Congress, which could say, okay, we're going to allow contraception, but that doesn't mean we're going to allow something else, because it's each of these things are independent decisions. When you make a vote on an issue, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to support something else. The problem with Griswold is when you create a legal construct that says that you have this right, then there are certain arguments legally that flow from that. And that was the problem with Griswold. It opened up Pandora's box. It wasn't an isolated decision, say, oh, we're only doing this. No, because you had legal rationale for you to do so. And that legal rationale creates precedent, and that precedent is then used to allow other types of behavior. Where if it's done legislatively, well, legislators can have a rationale for doing something and have a different rationale for a different one when it comes to another issue. That's not the way the law works. That's not the way court cases work. And so I made that same argument when it came to Lawrence versus Texas, which was one of the cases that was decided when I was in Congress. I was in the Senate and got into a firestorm of trouble, and became, at that moment, my argument against, prior to the decision coming out, argument against them creating the right to consensual sexual activity. Because prior to that, it was within marriage that was protected, but now we have the right to engage in any kind of sexual activity, and licensed by the government, if you will. That would open up Pandora's box to gay marriage and a whole host of other things that we have seen, which it did. And I said those things, and I said, look, I'm not saying we should that because this was a sodomy law. I said we shouldn't. I don't agree with the Texas sodomy law. I don't think there should be a sodomy law. It's not something the government can police. But
This
that
is
doesn't
this is
mean that we
Lawrence.
have. Yeah, Lawrence.
Yeah.
And I said that doesn't mean that we have to have a court case that rules against it. Let the legislature and the people work this out. Let the Congress work this out. When the court does it, you set a legal justification for it, then is then used as, and again, these are all progenies of Griswold, that is then used to further expand what I consider to be the destruction of the culture. And so, yeah, it's a nuanced argument that is lost on people, because I get accused all the time of being against this and against that and wanting to ban this and wanting to ban that, when in fact not everything that is immoral should be illegal. We don't have laws against fornication, right? We don't have laws against a lot of things that the Catholic Church and most people believe are sinful behavior, because it's not the role of the government to police people's sins. It is the role of the government to protect folks from each other and other types of things, but it's not involved in every moral decision. And so that's something that's lost, and it's something that candidly most politicians are just afraid to deal with, so they just punt and just say, "Oh, just I don't want to have to talk about these things because they make me uncomfortable," and now you see why.
Or it's tagged as negative, and God forbid someone be negative in front of a
Right, you're
camera.
trying to restrict my behavior. Well, yes, in
Yeah.
fact, that's what laws do.